good. No, it's not creepy at all.
When we finished Saw 3D, the last Saw movie to come out in 2010, we had been making Saw movies one every year for 7 years. And that's a lot.
We did 7 movies in 7 years. And so we never had time because they were greenlit after the one was released. So it was November, December, it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and all of a sudden in January, we had to deliver October 1 because we were delivering on film back. So we never had a second.
So for a couple of years after Saw 3D, I think we all just needed a break. And then after a couple of years went by, we started thinking about what the next Saw movie should be. And I think we realized a couple of things. Number one was that we didn't want to just continue in the cycle that we had been on.
We thought we have the chance to start fresh. Where should we do that? If we follow with what we've been doing, people will say, oh, they're doing the same old thing. If we go too far away from it, people will say, well, that's not my Saw. So we're in a situation where we want to kind of have the essence of Saw and some of the characters of Saw, and yet at the same time we're doing it for a new audience, maybe an audience that either hasn't had a chance to see it in the theater before, or an audience that might think, well, I've seen 7, do I really need to get off the couch to see the 8th?
Sound speed.
Victor 7, Alpha Kilo, take 1.
Please.
Alpha Mark.
We went through a couple of years with a lot of different ideas as to what we wanted to do. Maybe a prequel, maybe a sequel, maybe a reboot, whatever a reboot means. Maybe something picking up somewhere in the middle of our timelines. The Saw franchise has a very interesting timeline that we've worked out over the years. And there are gaps in the timeline that you can visit. So there was talk, well, what if we do something that happened during the gap in Saw 1? Or what happened between, 3 and 4? Or what if we visit some characters that weren't in one of the individual movies, but what were they doing while this other movie was happening? And it was really tough.
What we were looking for in the next script was, we actually developed it, but 2 writers came in, Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger, and they were amazing. And they came in with an idea that we didn't like, but we loved their enthusiasm and liked the kernel, and just started working with them, and it slowly evolved into what we have here today.
I would say the one thing that was really important to us coming on, we're big fans of Halloween, we're big fans of Nightmare on Elm Street. We've seen all those franchises, and the struggle with, I think, a lot of these franchises is you have to be responsible for everything you introduce. And so one of the things that happens in a franchise, and I think it did happen in Saw a little bit, is you owe so much to telling an audience where we've come, and we felt like every time you're explaining something that's happened in a prior film, you're dying. Like it's wasted time on screen. So, I mean, one of the things we really wanted to do was just turn the page as much as we could to allow more creativity to come into the script without having to catch everybody up all the time on what they might have missed.
There is nothing that we have thrown away. All of those characters still exist. We're operating in that world, and that was really important to us because the fans of Saw they're passionate. They love and the amount of emails and Twitter tweets that we get just on a regular basis of, I hope you didn't,
You better not have screwed this up.
One of the things we really tried to do in this one is get back to Saw 1. I think in Saw 1, there was a lot more thinking and a lot more jumps rather than blood and gore. And so we really tried to get back to Saw 1 in jumps, in scares, and a lot more logic.
They were looking, I mean, we bow down to this film, but we were hoping to go a little more usual suspects, make it a little bit more of a whodunit.
Saw 1 to us was an homage to David Fincher's 7. We were trying to make our own little twisted version. We actually named our company Twisted Pictures. It was an homage to, so we thought we were making 7. We didn't really realize we were making a horror film, but when we did a deal with Lionsgate to distribute it, Tim Palin, who is the head of everything creative there, said, this is a horror film. If you call it a thriller, no one's coming. If you call it a horror film. And we're like, okay. So we set out to make a thriller and won. And that's why I think people are thinking this feels back to Saw 1 and very thriller-esque.
Then, when they brought in Michael and Peter Spierig, the directors, they too were insistent on it not going too heavily in the overly gory place.
Not at the very first meeting we had with them before the coffee even came, they said, we do not want this to be just all gore all the time.
Here we go, everybody. And action. This film is going to be more accessible for people who have perhaps been turned off by the level of brutality in the previous films, and to try and steer away from the torture porn brand. You know, that's what we're really trying to avoid is branding this as a torture porn movie. That's not what we're doing at all. And to go back to that idea of seeing less and making it more about the thrills, and so that's kind of a goal of ours.
In our original take, there were a couple of moments that were that took it to another level. Specifically, there was one sequence in the third act that we had written that was on another level. And we fought with them about like whether that scene was going to wind up in there. Eventually, it got exchanged out for the laser trap, and that scene is great, and it's different, and it's part of this kind of new vibe of Saw, and it certainly isn't.
Nobody would say that's, yeah.
I mean, there's that one moment with the head spread open, which is beautiful and in keeping with the Saw franchise. It's definitely toned down slightly from our 10-minute sequence of just fucking craziness.
Yeah, we had, yeah.
But you know what? At the end of the day, I think that they made the right decision.
We want to make this something that the Saw fans are going to really love, but at the same time, people that may not have gone to see it because they would have thought it was either too violent or just too brutal. We're trying to make it, yeah, a bit more palatable for those people.
The tape and the knife are left behind. As Mitch starts to lift up, Anna runs across, tries to grab him. Too late, he's lifting up.
Well, I think a lot of the credit's going to go to the Spierigs, because our directors, the Spierig brothers, because they really wanted to make sure that they were making their movie. So what we're doing is we're doing a Saw movie through their eyes and not through the same eyes that we've done for the first 7. So there's going to be probably a little bit different sounds, a little bit different look, a little bit different color palette.
Also, we're expanding the world. You know, we go outside a lot more in this film.
One of the first notes we got from the studio and from the producers was we really want to try to open this up a little bit more. We don't want the entire film to be shot and feel like it's just inside a small stage.
Go, move. Let's go.
Saw has traditionally been a very sort of claustrophobic, closed kind of world, and we're opening that up quite a bit.
At the end of the day, it also comes back to bringing back what makes Saw so special, the original version of the film, where we've seen some really crazy, like that spiralizer is huge. It's a big set piece. It's a big trap. And then to come back to just a gun. And, you know, are you gonna, you know, are you gonna shoot yourself in the head? Are you gonna shoot somebody else in the head? How are you gonna use this? Are you gonna try to, and come back to the wordplay?
It seemed like everybody was really excited about the idea of doing something different. You know, we talked a lot about if we're coming back after 7 years, what are we doing that's going to be new and bring in a new audience as well as draw the fans back in. And you can't just do the same thing again. We wanted to offer something different. I feel like that's what we're doing here. I mean, we have an entirely new cast in this film. It is a new storyline, and there's definitely some new twists and turns that people haven't seen before. I think there'll be a few things that they're familiar with that we'll have fun sort of reinventing a little, but I certainly think that this is visually something completely different to what's been done before, and I think we have a really interesting script.
We had 5 years between movies, and we really got to develop a script, hire great directors, great cinematographer, great writers, and I think everyone's in for a fun ride.